Look away, Dixieland. That sure is a sweet sound to the ears. Wouldn't you say so, Mr. Wales?
Your young friend can use some help. This is it. $1 a bottle. It works wonders on wounds.
Works wonders on just about everything, huh?
It can do most anything.
How was it with stings?
The selling of snake oil is big business, and it is really easy to fall prey to charlatans who want to take advantage of a vulnerable patient population in order to make a profit. I would like to teach you a few things so that you could better protect yourself from this type of fraud. First, make sure that your source of information is legitimate. For example, I am Dr. Morgan Levy. I am a UCLA-trained physician and researcher who studied patients that had brain injury, including patients with multiple sclerosis. Then, in 1994, I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. So you can see I am a relatively legitimate source of information. Second, if you can't be sure about the source of information, there are some telltale signs of fake medicine that you can be on the lookout for. For example, the use of words like amazing or miraculous, a secret formula, a natural treatment that has no side effects, a single therapy that treats numerous conditions, claims that are anti-conventional medicine, failure to mention effectiveness, safety, or cost, or that they are trying to sell you something that only they are selling. The fact is that multiple sclerosis is a unique and extremely complex condition. Thousands of researchers and millions of dollars over 70 years have yet to discover the cause of multiple sclerosis. And the 9 treatments that have been proven to slow the progression of multiple sclerosis were discovered serendipitously. That is to say, we have little idea of how they actually work. So, why is multiple sclerosis so hard to study? It is hard to study because it involves a cascade of events in the immune system, which is the most complex system in the human body, more complex even than the brain and nervous system. Here is an oversimplified chart showing just a few of the immune-related components that are involved. You can easily see here how the innate complement activation system responds to a pathogen, causing natural killer cells and dendritic cells to proliferate, releasing cytokines that increase capillary permeability, and through chemotaxis stimulate interleukin factors and components of the adaptive immune system, such as the humoral antibodies produced by B lymphocytes and the cell-mediated immunity mediated by T lymphocytes. Okay, I'll stop. But just understand that it is tremendously complicated. Let me explain it a little differently. Let me just give you sort of a visual so that you can kind of try to understand what I'm talking about in regards to how complicated the immune system is. You can think of the cascade of immune-related events as a line of dominoes that must fall in the correct order before the disease manifests itself. As you watch these dominoes fall, understand that there's all kinds of feedback mechanisms and multiple different cells involved, and we really only know about 10% of how this process works in the human body. Multiple sclerosis is famous in medicine for being the disease of a million cures because it affects young people in the prime of their lives, causing them to be paralyzed, and then it remits so they can walk again. Therefore, doctors have a huge desire to treat it, and anything you treat it with seems to work. Now that we have some real treatments that really do work, you would think a lot of these fake treatments would go away. But that's not how it works. You see, in medicine, when any new treatment comes out, it generally spawns a number of fake treatments. Right now, as we speak, there are literally thousands of websites on the internet that are promoting fake treatments and fake cures for multiple sclerosis. It is profitable and usually legal and easy to do. Okay, why don't we watch a brief video that describes the history of selling snake oil.
We have all heard it. That guy's a snake oil salesman, a shyster, a con. This terminology has become an intricate part of our culture, but where did that term come from? Were there really snake oil salesmen? Did they really sell snake oil? It all began when the Transcontinental Railroad was being built in North America. Chinese immigrants came over, and with them their cures for the aching joints and muscles that they had at the end of each workday. What they used was snake oil. Americans, seeing how well this remedy worked, jumped on the bandwagon, and word quickly spread that this was a cure for rheumatism, joint pain, and other things. The craze soon developed into a fervor. People began snake farms. In the Patriot newspaper in 1885, rattlesnake oil was said to be going for $4 an ounce. By 1891, the Wheeling Register claimed rattlesnakes were going for $25 to $50 each if they were 4 feet or longer. Soon, snake oil salesmen were everywhere, touting the wondrous claims of this cure. They would grandstand at circuses and carnivals, thrilling the audience with their hissing rattlers and claims of the wonderful drug. Clark Stanley was the most famous snake oil salesman and became known as the Rattlesnake King. Problem was, there wasn't much snake in the snake oil. Mostly, it was mineral oil, camphor, turpentine, and red pepper. It did little to relieve the sore, aching muscles, and suspicion grew. Even when it was made with authentic rattlesnake oil, it never seemed to match the claims of the Chinese workers' oil. So why was that? It appears when the Americans made their snake oil, it was done with rattlesnake. This was the crux of the problem. It was the wrong snake altogether. In 1905, Collier magazine did an expose on the snake oil salesmen, declaring them frauds, pushing useless and sometimes dangerous cures. The public was furious that they had been duped, and they led to the Pure Food and Drug Act being passed in 1907. So why did the Chinese product seem so miraculous when the American-made one was a dud? Well, the Chinese used a completely different snake in their oil. The Chinese water snake, Hydra chinesis, was used, and as it was aquatic, it ate mostly fish, something rattlesnakes in the desert never do. This made them particularly useful for fighting inflammation. EPA acids or omega oils have been found not only to reduce inflammation, but reduce high blood pressure, cholesterol, and depression as well. Neurophysiology researcher Richard Cunin brought redemption to the snake oil in 1989 when he wrote a letter to the Western Journal of Medicine claiming that Chinese water snakes had almost 20% EPA oil, higher than the salmon at 18, and rattlesnakes had a measly 4% oil. It appears that snake oil was an effective remedy after all. So when we make claims that something is to be believed or not, we may not have all the facts. What we think may be true may be false, and what is believed to be false may actually be true.
There are currently 9 medications that have been proven with double-blind placebo-controlled trials to actually work for multiple sclerosis. We call these disease-modifying agents. They are Limtrada, Tecfidera, Aubagio, Gilenya, Tysabri, Rebif, Copaxone or Glatopa, Avonex, and Betaseron or Extavia. So, how does the average Joe avoid falling victim to a snake oil salesman? Well, the FDA has a website to protect people against medical fraud. Here is a 3-minute video from that website that describes really well how to avoid being taken in.
At this very minute, someone is falling for a health fraud scam. On TV, online, in print ads, in stores. It's happening all around us. But spend just a little time with me right now, and we'll show you how to see through health fraud scams. By being smart, being aware, and by being careful, you'll be able to identify and avoid health fraud scams. What exactly is health fraud? Just what it sounds like, a scam. A way to deceive people about health products that may not be all they're cracked up to be. They play on our desire for a quick cure, and then they bombard us with savvy marketing. And these companies target all of us, promising help with weight loss, sexual performance, aches, pains, memory loss, and other age-related issues. Even people with more serious medical conditions like cancer, heart disease, HIV, Alzheimer's, and many more. They use TV infomercials, the internet, magazines, and direct mail. They even recruit people, perhaps even family and friends you know, to spread the word about their products through word-of-mouth marketing. They make claim after miraculous claim, miracle cures, wonder drugs. And for those who need hope, it's tempting to believe them. But think of the consequences of falling for these health scams. Sure, it could cost you lots of money, wasted on worthless drugs, supplements, devices, test kits, and treatments. But it could also cost you your health. And by using unproven health products rather than the appropriate treatments, you might miss your window of opportunity to diagnose and treat a serious disease or condition. These products might make you even sicker. They could interfere with your medicines. They could even kill you. So what should you do? Well, the FDA wants you to know the red flags you need to be on the lookout for. Be aware of claims like quick fix, scientific breakthrough, cure-all, or no-risk money-back guarantee. And if a product claims to cure a wide range of unrelated diseases, be suspicious. And many serious diseases don't even have a cure, despite what some companies claim. They'll also use personal testimonials and doctors played by actors claiming amazing results to scam you. You'll also want to be especially careful on the internet. This is one place where you'll find more and more products tainted with potentially harmful ingredients, including prescription drugs, steroids, and other chemicals not listed on the label. The bottom line is this: if it's an unproven or little-known treatment, talk to your doctor or healthcare professional before you take anything for your health problem. You'll want to protect your personal information, including your Medicare ID number. Never give it out in exchange for a free offer. How many people do you think have been scammed just in the time that I've been talking to you? Too many. It's happening all around us, every minute of every day. So don't be a victim of health fraud scams. Be smart, be aware, and be careful. For more information on how to spot health fraud scams, visit fda.gov/healthfraud.
Sometimes it can be difficult even for a highly educated scientist to spot a snake oil salesman. As a researcher, I often saw other researchers who were simply failing to do research in the correct way. They were coming up with results that could not be replicated. In other words, results that were fake. Interestingly, it was not always the case that they were simply trying to rip people off and make money. It was often the case that they really believed their fake results because they just weren't doing critical thinking in the correct way. Maybe they had a bias. An example of this would be the Italian surgeon Paolo Zamboni, who in 2009 found that balloon angioplasty of a jugular vein could cure 100% of people with multiple sclerosis. When others tried to replicate these findings, they could not. In order to be socially appropriate, us scientists refer to what he did as not adequately controlling for bias. What we really mean is, that idiot does not know how to do research. The thing is that you have to have a bit of compassion for Paolo because his wife has multiple sclerosis, and I think he really was, trying hard to find a cure, and that he was maybe a bit overly optimistic. But he also owns patents on some expensive ultrasound technology that is used to diagnose how open a jugular vein is. And the criteria was actually just made up by him. So when you look at his research, you kind of have to wonder, I mean, can you say bias? Another popular scam these days is fake stem cells. Stem cells are very popular and offer tremendous promise in the future, but are currently experimental and not approved for treating multiple sclerosis. Stem cell treatment can be very expensive and extremely invasive. You have to wipe out your entire immune system and regrow it. And the problem is that we don't really know how to regrow it in a way that creates the exact type of immune cell that will fix the problem with multiple sclerosis. We're not even all that close. Nevertheless, here are some websites that advertise stem cell treatment for multiple sclerosis. Bottom line here is don't go to Mexico and spend $100,000 for stem cells that don't work. Science and medical research is something that humans have only been doing for a short time. We are not very good at it, and it takes a lot of training to be able to do it at all. A simple way to think of it is that in order to do good research, you have to learn how to think logically. The problem is, our brains did not evolve to do logic. Logic is not the way that humans think. Our brains evolved to be really good at making heavily biased guesses. Our brains also evolved to have a strong sense that previously held viewpoints were accurate. That is how our brains work. It is also what snake oil salesmen take advantage of. They tell you things that are consistent with your previously held ideas, and they basically tell you what you want to hear. Scientists and legitimate physicians, that is, MDs and DOs, on the other hand, they tell you things that are not consistent necessarily with your previously held ideas and things that aren't necessarily what you want to hear. So it's obvious and easy to understand how a patient who has a serious disease or illness might ignore a regular physician and believe a snake oil salesman. I hope we can now understand and appreciate a little bit better how not to be taken in by snake oil and how to obtain legitimate medical treatment.